Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 1, Episode 9 of Gotham Knights. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start up with the fact is we're picking up in the aftermath of what went down last episode with the court taking Turner and obviously the Gotham Knights. Obviously you have Stephanie and Duella being on the side of, I can't believe we left him behind. You shouldn't have left him behind, obviously, but it's like, right, if we did try to go up against the court right now, we would have gotten killed and no one would have been able to help Turner. So it's like, well, what do we do? Well, we need to be able to, because they have no idea how to find him, especially with how the court does their meetings. It's like, we don't know when the next meeting will be. Obviously, they want Turner alive because they would have killed him right then and there, because his body was found, they would have found his body with Cressida's body or whatever. So they ultimately come up with the plan of let's give them the Electrum, and that's any complicated superhero situation to be in, where it's like, okay, the bad guy wants this thing, we could use it in exchange for someone we care about, but it's like, are we willing to put something in the hands of the Court of Owls that they need, especially knowing that this is what they need to for the immortality that they are seeking. So, but at the very least, it starts with them finding it, which I do love that being the puzzle that it was. Because it's like, right, they start looking in a spot that, like, okay, Alan Wayne signed this here, so maybe it's supposed to be his version of X marks the spot. And I love that they go to the digging site and they've already started looking, but they ultimately don't find it there because they were looking in the wrong spot. Because the map was inside a frame, they didn't notice the little holes in it that Cullen did, and Cullen did, and notices that, like, if you put them all together, it represents Gotham's old infrastructure, just like its skyline. And I love that you combine, because I love initially Duella's like, oh, like kind of like being super sarcastic and suggesting like, oh, time travel or whatever, and it's like, oh my god, you're a genius. And she's like, oh, I am. It's like, no, not you, Carrie, because she's the one that suggested, like, right, let's match it up to the old skyline or whatever. So they were able to do it because Alan Wayne, one of the paintings they stole, was a painting of the old skyline. So it's like, now they ended up lining up the drawing and the map, and it gave them an idea of exactly where the Electrum actually was buried. And what I also like in that too is that as the episode was progressing, and like when Stephanie was supposed to kind of like distract one of the people in the discussion, which is like weird because it's like, I guess the argument's supposed to be like, they're 18. Still doesn't make it any less weird, but yeah, I guess that's supposed to be like, it's okay, they're 18. Plus, I'm like, the actors have got to be in like their early 20s. Like, rarely do you get teenagers actually playing teenagers on TV. There are a few exceptions, but I'm sure this is one of those situations where like all the actors are like probably like 18 or older. At most, they're probably like in their early 20s. But either way, tangents and all that aside, but the moment, like, Harper made Stephanie bring her hair down, it's like, why do I have to be the one that's kind of bait or whatever? It's like, oh, you're setting feminism back all, like, 100 years or whatever. But and, like, Harper was looking at her, like, because you're very distracting. And I was like, wait. I was like, does Harper have a thing for... I wasn't expecting that. Interesting. So, and even Cullen notices, like, no, like, I know you, sis. Like, I know, like, the type of people you're into. You're into himbos as well as straight girls who will basically never, like, feel the same way about you. You kind of go for someone that will be unavailable or whatever. And it's like, oh, I don't like her. She's only a friend, which is funny because you would have never even said that before now. But for Cullen, it's like, I just don't want you to walk away with your heart broken. Because it's like, she definitely does, like Stephanie. It's like, oh, blonde hair, blue eyes. And he's like, who do you think I'm talking about? Vicky Vale? I'm like, hey! Which is, I wonder, is Vicky still around in this time frame or whatever? Not that she's come up on some new stuff, but once again, considering how old Bruce might be in this continuity, who knows how old... Well, I mean, you look at how old Harvey is, so I don't know, I'd assume Vicky would probably be about that same age too, or whatever. And once again, I do like this development we've had with Duella. It's become more and more obvious. I thrown that out earlier in the series, be like, oh, I wonder, that'd be such an interesting pairing, like Turner and Duella. And it's like, yeah, children of the greatest arch nemesis in all fiction, Batman and Joker. So, but them kind of there being something there, especially after last episode. I don't, like I said, I've already been feeling it for a while, but last episode really solidified it. So, and her desperation to want to save Turner, because it's like, because like Carrie tried to throw it in her face, like, yeah, you tried to betray us back in episode 2, and it's like, yeah, but Turner still helped me regardless. And what did we do? We ended up abandoning him to the point she was willing to take the Electrum and go to Wayne Manor. It's like, no, let's give it to him. I don't care. I'm gonna give this to them. Who cares if I'm a bad guy. I don't care. Me doing good isn't me. But Carrie's like, no, I know that you are only in this situation because there are so many people in Gotham who've been kind of had to grow up with no hope because just of the circumstances they were raised in. And it's like, you are no exception. And I'm sorry for that. But that doesn't mean like we have to find a different way. I want to get Turner back just as much as you do. And Cullen's the one who ended up coming up with the idea of like, well, we can. Makes a fake Electrum. It's like, right, we'll try and fool them. So, and make the switch. But I think it speaks all the volumes that Duella's the one that's like, nah, like initially was like, no, who cares? Like, let's give this to them if it means getting Turner back. And I think that's probably going to be a complicated thing for her to deal with because she's never cared enough about anyone like that. Because I think also she's never had anyone care about her like that at all and really kind of resonate with her. I think for the first time in her life, she feels seen. And I think that's what her and Turner kind of feel for each other. It's like, you kind of see me, darkness and all, and you kind of accept that darkness, and I mean, you kind of want me to lean into it more, whereas everyone else kind of wants to pull me from that darkness. Carrie doesn't want me to dive into the darkness because that's not what my father would want me to do. My father wouldn't want me following in his footsteps, and Stephanie cares about him and would never want him to do that, but Duella would probably like, she's the one that kind of accepts him warts and all, and I think she kind of sees that like, right, it's the interesting thing where like I think they're having an interesting influence on each other. It's like, right, you bring out more of the bad in me and he brings out more of the good in her type of situation. We'll see. But ultimately, I thought was interesting too when it came to switching over to the Turner side of things, that Lincoln would reveal himself to be like, yeah. It also shows you how dedicated he is to this, that he let the talent stab him just to kind of, prove a point. But either way, he reveals himself to Turner, and it's like, right, did you ever wonder whatever happened to your family? Like, it speaks volumes that the world's greatest detective, who could never solve his family's murder, because we also don't know about that either, because we find out Joe Chill isn't the one that killed Turner's parents. So, I mean, not Turner's parents, Bruce's parents. But it's like, did he never figure out? My thought was, and someone else had that thought too, that yeah, he probably did figure it out at some point, but it's a thing of like when the trauma is there, you're just not willing to see things for what they were. I mean, once again, I made the example before, and I'm going back to it again. It's the Telltale game, the first season of it. Like Bruce has to basically go back in time. He has to not literally, but obviously memory-wise, and look back and remember something from that childhood that he had never noticed before, because it's not something he picked up until all these years later, because it meant nothing to him as a child, but it also meant reliving that trauma. So it's like, yeah, Bruce probably never looked too deep into the Joe Chill thing until probably nearing the end, and that's probably why he ended up dying. There is like connective tissue there, along with some other stuff, I'm sure, being like, right, the court already wanted Batman out of the way, like, there was just probably extra motivation of like, let's do it now. Why wait all this time until now? But I guess they found their end with Cressida. But I mean, she'd been with the Wayne family for a while. But it was a long laid plan of like, yeah, let's kind of spread this out. Either way, Lincoln has Turner in like, well, I was about to say in jest, but he's literally stabbed him with this knife coated in kind of like this hallucinogen, which ultimately makes him see his parents, which his mom is played by Emily Rose. I was like, wait, is that? I was like, that's not, oh my God, it's Emily Rose. I went back to the credits of the episode at the beginning to make sure I wasn't being crazy. I was like, that looks like that's Emily Rose. It sure is. I was like, that's awesome. Emily Rose, I know her, like my first introduction to her was this TV show Haven. It was on the network Sci-Fi here in the US. It's a great show. If you've never seen it, highly recommend you check it out. I know you could find all 5 seasons on Netflix before, but I don't know if that's still the case anymore. I'm sure that licensing deal might be up. But either way, Great show there. But also, if you're familiar on the video game side of things, if you're familiar with the Uncharted franchise, she is Elena in the Uncharted franchise. Which I'm also wondering too. I'm like, is this her first DC thing? I wonder. Like that, I'm aware of live action wise, but I mean, I'm curious, would she have done anything? Because she could either have done something voice acting wise. I mean, she has a great voice. She has a very unique voice. So it wouldn't be too surprising if she, like, you know, I don't know. I'm curious, has she ever done anything DC animated wise? Either way, tangents and all that aside, Turner's seeing his parents and he's happy, but he knows like this isn't real. But they're like, no, but we're real to you. But the biggest question is, I mean, Bruce, yeah, he took you in. We're grateful about that. But we're also upset because why didn't you try and solve our murder? Like, you never looked into it. He's like, but I was a kid when you guys died. Like, if I was, maybe I could have done something, but it's like, no, but you never asked any questions. You never really cared enough to look any deeper because your dad was not only Bruce Wayne, he was Batman. The world's greatest detective could never, like, you know, with everything with his family's murder, why wouldn't he do the same thing for you and solve? But he never did. You never asked any questions why he never did. I mean, granted, you know, he never, obviously, he didn't find out until now about Bruce being Batman, but it's playing into like, right, you had to have thought about it when you found out about your father being Batman. He's the world's greatest detective, so why didn't you figure this out? Like, why didn't he ever figure it out? Like, you know, at the very least, back when he was just Bruce Wayne, he had the money and resources, but maybe he placated you by being like, no, I'll spend all this time looking into it. Why did Bruce make you try to move forward from your parents' murder, even though his parents' murder is the motivation for him being Batman later on anyway? It was a foundational part of him becoming who he became. And so Lincoln really pushes it for Turner. It's like, why? And ultimately he makes, because it's like, right, there are so many orphans in this town, so many people that Bruce could have taken under his wing, but he chose you. Your family were just like ordinary people. They were murdered, and like he decided to take you under his wing, adopt you, showed up at the funeral. Why? And then it's like, because Batman killed my parents. And it's like, but the biggest question is that we don't know why, and Lincoln and them must know why. Why would that be the case? Was it an accident? Like, were they caught up in the crossfire of Bruce's fight? And did Bruce have to, like, obviously, like, take Batwoman, for example, how that tragedy affected so much. Like, that Kate's origin story in Batwoman, like, how that influenced, not even just her, it played a massive role in, Ryan, like, life as well, that whole bus situation. So, I wonder if it's kind of a similar circumstance of it was just the consequences of him not doing his job, like, because they danced around it, because it's not like Lincoln gave like a definitive reason why would Batman go out of his way to murder people, especially when he made such a point of, yeah, Turner, you're going to be our new Talon, that's what we want you to be, because yeah, you killed our Talon. It's like, yeah, mortality won't do anything for being beheaded. It is interesting to know though that, and I guess it should make sense that the Court of Owls is way older. I mean, because Gotham's been around for at least hundreds of years. Like, isn't there like 500 years of history for Gotham or something like that? I don't know like how far back Gotham goes, like in like the DC continuity and stuff like that. I mean, once again, that I'm sure that changes from continuity to continuity, but because they were saying, like, right, the Home Dude isn't our first talent, and he won't be our last. So it's like, right, they had another immortal before him, but it's like, yeah, your head getting lopped off is kind of a good go-to. So it makes you wonder how, like, I'm assuming the other previous talent got the same treatment. I guess that's the only way to, like, perma-kill him, is, like, lopping off his head. But it's like, yeah, you did that without hesitation. You did something even Batman would never do, because Batman never crosses that line of killing someone. So, or at least, you know, obviously depends on the continuity. A lot of continuities lean into the fact that he does ultimately kill, like, typically his arch nemesis, the Joker, but obviously, you know, other things. But, so it makes me wonder, like, why would Bruce kill his parents? He had something to do with their deaths, because it is something that he never wanted Turner to know, and it is something Carrie is keeping from him. We still, you know, they play that in the intro too, because, like, right, that's the secret. That's been my theory for a while. It had to have something to do with his parents, like specifically Turner's legacy. I think Turner, my thought was like his parents must have something to do with the quarter. I was like, why are they taking such an interest in him? But maybe it's because it's like, because even Lincoln was like, maybe it's you being an orphan, because it's like you've shown so much more potential than my own son. But maybe it's because you have that need in you to prove yourself, because it's like you always strove to prove yourself worthy of Bruce's legacy, but he never proved to be worthy of you. You know, trying to, because he's seen that determination, that darkness in Turner, and he's trying to bend it to their will to become their new talent. But it's like, I'm not going to become your next immortal psychopath. It's like, yeah, but for them, they're trying to justify it. Like, right, the talent only goes after people that are necessary. It's like, yeah, the people that are standing in your way. It's like, yeah, because we're trying to make this world a better world in your image. You're the one that gets to dictate how this world gets shaped. We already know that. But like I said, we still walk away from this episode with that big question of who were Turner's parents? Were they really just ordinary people, or maybe that's the real thing that like Lincoln's avoiding because maybe he thinks that no one knows the truth except for Carrie about, you know, and obviously they didn't talk about, none of them have been able to talk to Turner about what he went through and what he knows, but I think eventually he might talk to Carrie about it, because Carrie knew enough about his dad and his secrets to know, like, right, Carrie might, I don't know if it's going to be necessarily next episode, but he probably will be eventually questioning Carrie soon enough, so. But either way, when it's all said and done, the team comes in to save him. Obviously, Duella's got her crazy plan B, got a whole bunch of grenades tied to herself, and it's like, oh, I'm willing to blow us all up. But he calls her bluff. Lincoln calls her bluff, and especially their bluff about the Electrum, and ends up slicing Turner's throat. I was like, Jesus. It's like, right, if that's the real Electrum, then you'll end up, you'll use it to save Turner. And it's like, oh, you can't because it's not real. Carrie shows up, though, because she knew this was always going to be a possibility. Obviously, she didn't want to give up the Electrum, but she did for Turner's sake. And so, and the moment you saw, like, Duella, like, shaking away, like, when she was kind of almost like she was almost like, she was heartbroken in that moment, because I think it's also like I couldn't do anything in that moment. Like, I couldn't follow through, because even Lincoln was like, yeah, your dad would have come through with like a plan B, like a plan B like that wasn't, like, you weren't really going to go through it. It's like, yeah, you're a little crazy, but even you wouldn't have gone that far, maybe, but who knows. But I think maybe in that moment, not really knowing what to do, like, you could tell, like, she was really shaken in that moment. But luckily they were able to rescue Turner, got him out of there, but sadly meant handing over the Electrum to the court. And obviously that weighs heavy on Carrie, because she's always done what she's done to carry on Batman's legacy, but she feels like she had never really realized it, you know, then and there, what it means to, you know, fully realize what it means to be in a superhero's shoes, where you have to make those decisions, those split decisions between who lives and who dies. Like, you know, do you choose the one above the many? And it's like, in this instance, she feels like she did. She chose Turner over the countless people that would be hurt by the court. I even love that analogy she made, which it was not even an analogy, just talking about bats being the, like, predators that they are, but having one, like in the hierarchy, a hunter that's even more deadly than them. Like, they are kind of prey in another creature's eyes, and it's owls. And I was like, oh, is that really how that goes? I would have never, like, equated that in my head, but it's like, oh, that's interesting. I mean, like, you kind of underestimate, like, owls and their talons and stuff, how sharp they can be. So it's like, because we all think of, like, owls as, like, the cute things that they are. So it's, like, interesting, like, how bats have, like, their perception, or they're kind of like, oh, they're rats with wings. And then you have owls, or, like, have, like, oh, man, owls are cool. So it's, like, interesting to be like, oh, the thing that looks so cool can be so much deadlier to the thing that looks scary. It's just funny how that works out. And it's like, it fits the narrative right now, considering, like, right, the owls ended up taking down the bat. So, but Cullen tried to make Harry feel better, because it's like, right, you can't be going out of the Batman playbook. Like, maybe this is the first chapter in the Robin book, you know? So Carrie's kind of shaken in her path as a hero. So that's all kind of going down. Obviously, Turner's not too quick to talk about everything. And because of Stephanie being there for Turner and seeing them touch hands, and obviously it's like, because she was implying like, oh, like, Turner, like, there's you could go back to your friendship with benefits, but it's like, no, Turner's like a brother to me, but I'm glad to know you're so interested in my sex life. And seeing them touching together, like, it made her kind of listen to what Cullen had said before, but it isn't like that. I don't think she doesn't like Turner does like her, but I don't think he's really figured his feelings out. But I don't know if Stephanie will ever really fully look at him in that same way. So who knows what Harper and Stephanie's future might be. Once again, I'm more so. I would actually like that pairing more because I want like Turner and Duella to be a thing. But either way, I did like him. He's like, yeah, I figured you probably had other, Duella reasons, Duella-isms of like you had other reasons why you wanted to help me. But I'm glad I was part of that reason. But she's like, no, you were kind of the only reason in this particular case, which I was like, hey, I thought something was going to happen. But then like he starts vomiting, I guess maybe the after effects of the Electrum. Because even though it was like used to heal that wound, I'm assuming like it's already a part of his DNA now. Like, I don't know like how much you would actually need to, because it is such a small rock, but I mean, I'm curious like how much of that would really make you. I'm so curious. Is that going to be tied in any shape or form? Because it's like, once again, you have like the Electrum and what it does, like that's got to be tied to like the Lazarus Pit because it does this similar thing. So I'm curious like what this rocket, like I wonder. Because because it's like, oh, this came from space and it landed here. I'm like, it can't just be like nothing. It has to be something. But I'm curious, like in the grander. All right, because I forgot. I did look into it. I forgot. Like last episode, I did look into the Electrum. It is an alloy from the comics, but I don't know if they went as far. At least the little research I did, I don't think I looked into it enough to find out whether or not it had like a alien connection in the comics or not. I don't think it came up in, but like I said, I only researched a little bit last episode. Either way, I'm assuming this is supposed to represent like what's happening to Turner at the end of the episode. It's supposed to be like his physiology is kind of changing on the inside because of the Electrum. Like I don't know if that means he's gonna be like permanently immortal or just it like the little bit it's done to heal his wounds is kind of having an adverse effect. Like I don't know if he constantly need treatments from the Electrum. Like it might be like almost like a transitional period, like a vampire. Like, hey, your process isn't done until you've drank blood. Because if you don't drink blood, you'll die. But once you've drinking blood, then the process is done. Like that might be the thing of like you got a little taste of the Electrum, and now you need the fully transition into like an immortal for the process to stick around, or you will like immediately die. I don't know if it's something like that. We'll have to wait and see. Finally, another side of this episode deals with the whole Harvey of it all. It didn't even click in my head. I'm such an idiot for not even realizing, like, right, the blood and everything. Of course, like, the blood on Harvey is from Cressida. And it's like, oh, like, I felt so stupid. And Harvey, it's not until Harvey was like, it's not until Cressida's body came into play and then, Harvey's looking at the mask, and I was like, oh, how could I be so stupid for not piecing that together last episode? But either way, he does get the blood on the mask tested, and it is Cressida's blood. So he might have been the one that stabbed her, or at the very least, he was close enough when the blood splattered. Like, he had to be one of the people behind her. Because I'm trying to remember, like, in that scene now, like, how many people were there to drag. So he might have actually been the one who actually did do it. Well, the other Harvey did at the very least. And so now that he's confirmed this, he ends up making a recording, a very lengthy recording. I was looking, I was like, yo, it's almost like a 2-hour recording, basically talking about everything, being like, I'm not the one who did this, because he knows that, like, because now Turner, because he's got Cressida's DNA under her fingernail, now it's like, oh, it looks like Turner's the one that did this. It's like, well, are we forgetting about the guy that also stabbed Lincoln? But maybe the argument could be like, oh, that was also Turner as well. And now, like, it's all falling on Turner. First, he killed Bruce, attempted to kill Lincoln, and ended up killing Cressida. So it's just the court doing everything it can to force back Turner more and more and more into a corner so that he kind of has no choice but to kind of take them up on their offer type of situation, I think. But either way, because Harvey's recording is meant to be like, hey, if you're seeing this, it means I'm already in jail. So, but he wants to get to the truth of it all because he doesn't understand what's happening to him. And I'm curious will Turner ultimately end up telling Harvey about Lincoln. I don't know if he knows that those two are in contact and necessarily working together. He might have already pieced that together and he's probably fine with it. But it's like, even if Harvey finds out about Lincoln, it's like, well, you're still under the court's control, so it's not like you can really do much type of situation, I think. Because we will always have control over you. But Harvey, fills up the memory card, but then he notices that there's another video on it. So he plays it, and it's from the other Harvey, who it's like, hey, buddy, I knew you would do this. We would do this. So it's like, right, you are not a murderer. So I don't know if that's implying no, we haven't murdered anyone. Or is it just being no, you aren't the murderer, I am. I don't know if the other side of him is you're not going to take credit for what I did because I'm the strong one. Once again, it might be kind of a little bit of a spoiler Moon Knight thing of one side was created to kind of hey, you were supposed to have the happy life and you remember all the terrible things about your upbringing, but it's still the thing of you became a well-adjusted human being. Well, that's because me, the darker side of you, took all the abuse. Whereas it's kind of not, it's the inverse of Moon Knight of the show, but you get what I'm trying to say. Maybe this other Harvey is the one that took all the blows from his dad. It's his psyche split. I mean, once again, it's already a medical condition in their family. His dad had it. He might have it, but it might just be expedited just because of what the Talon's done to him. Maybe because, not the Talon, but the Court of Owls, because they know about his condition and have taken advantage of it type of situation. So I don't know how to interpret the other Harvey's line of you aren't a killer, being either you legitimately didn't do any of these killings, you just been playing your part in all of this, or no, don't take credit for what I've done. So we'll have to wait to see where that takes us, or all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.